Hey, welcome back to this week's Money Monday with Millennial Thermom. Today, I'm going to be talking about money, and specifically from my perspective as a mental health therapist, as somebody who has learned a lot about stress and money and anxiety. I just always see the connection between talking about money and our mental health popping up. So make sure to keep watching to get some tips, specifically five. So I'm going to be reviewing some slides because I had actually prepared this for an in-person event that I did in San Diego with an amazing person, Ivette Kuyateh, and her husband Sheik and my husband louis.lee, which I'll connect their information around because honestly, I think that one of the tips, which will actually be the last tip, I just will give you a little sneak peek to it, is talking to a financial professional, getting some support, especially like support with accountability and compassion, I think is priceless. And those three individuals right there are people that I would definitely say, go ahead, schedule something with them to talk about money with your partner, by yourself, wherever, right? So, to jump into this first slide I'm going to show is like I mentioned earlier, this is my perspective on communicating around money. And specifically, this site says couples, but I think that you can apply it to yourself, even if you're not a couple, or you can apply it to talking about money with somebody else, right? Anybody else, really, whether that's a financial professional, your mom, a cousin, whoever, right? So take what works, leave what doesn't, as always. And remember that this is not professional advice. This is not a service. This is just one mom, comadre, talking to my people out there, whoever's on the other side of the screen, hoping to share some tips and some topics that I'm finding really valuable in my own journey. So the first one is that talking about money and budgeting is not just talking about money and budgeting. And what do we mean by that? I think if you just take a moment to pause and ask yourself, like, what's underneath these money conversations for me or for somebody else that I've interacted with, you might see that things like your values show up, things like guilt and shame, things like stress, things like triggers, family of origin stuff, right? Like, how did we talk about money growing up? What was okay to spend money on and what wasn't? Like, what was normal and what wasn't? Like, all that kind of stuff pops up. So, when you're talking to somebody else, it could be that what might seem like an obvious next baby step for them is actually not an obvious next baby step for you because maybe your values are different or maybe you just have different goals, right? So that I think is just like the number one thing is remember that it's not just money. Number two is that your stress response may be activated, and this is human. So in the visual here, you'll see that we have three common stress responses. There's like four, a fourth one out there too, but I like these three, which is fight, flight, freeze, and then the fourth one, which is actually being able to face it. And a lot of times, our fight, flight, freeze responses come up when something is stressful, when something triggers us, when there is a tone that is not sitting so well with us, when there is a face that's being made at us. So just know that this might come up for you. Usually you can feel it in your body. Like for a lot of people, this anger and anxiety might feel like warm in their chest or palpitations or something in their stomach. So just notice that for yourself and name it. Basically, be like, "Oop, I'm getting a little bit into the fight zone right now with this topic. I'm getting a little bit into flight. I'm anxious. I want to avoid it. I'm feeling a little bit shut down, right?" So just being able to name it can be huge, huge, huge because you cannot face something that you are not willing to see, right? And I say this like to myself compassionately and to you. So the fourth response, which eventually, hopefully we can get there, is being able to face it and being able to face it with our thinking brain and our emotional brain, feeling calm and feeling grounded. So just for yourself, think about like, what do you notice is your common go-to response when you talk about money with somebody? I will personally share that mine is a little bit more shut down in the beginning. I'm a lot better at it now, but when me and my husband were first talking about this in our pre-marriage counseling days in what is it, 2021, early 2022, I definitely felt like I would feel myself shut down. Like I just didn't want to talk about it. And of course, I had to unpack and share with him like all of my own money stories and beliefs around money, but we're in a way better place. And that's what I want for you. I want you to feel like, yes, I can talk about money and I can talk about our next steps and I can dream bigger. I can have visions, but I do think that we need to let our body know like we are safe, like we are not fighting a bear right now. We just talking about money, right? So that's like the goal, which connects with point number three, which is if you do notice, like whatever that feels like for you, whether it's heat or anxiety or a rush or shut down, pause, breathe, and take a step to create safety. If you need to do this with me right now, I'm going to do it one more time. Take a pause, take a deep breath in through your nose. So I just think that's really important. I am a big proponent of the pause and breathe, then take your next step, right? And I had these few slides because first, I just really like this quote. It's been attributed to Viktor Frankl. It's between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and freedom. I love that so much because I do think that our mindset is something that we have freedom in, right? Nobody can tell me, stop thinking that. I mean, they can try, but I'm probably going to keep thinking about it, right? And I think that's what I'm unlocking for myself now as a toddler mom. Like, I can always figure out how to get back into my calm and my safety in whatever moment, whether that's like changing a diaper or dealing with a tantrum or talking about money, right? We can always pause, but it does take practice. I want to let you know that though it sounds simple, maybe easy, it's not always because we're humans who are wired to survive. So this might feel a little more complicated than it is really, but that's because it takes practice. And then the last one is just be mindful of the way that we create safety with our language and our tone, right? So instead of saying like, I want you to stop making me feel so angry or so guilty or so whatever. You can instead say, I felt really upset and hurt. So let's use a money example. Instead of saying, like, you just want to control how I spend my money. Let's say we're talking with somebody, right? We can instead say, I felt a little bit shamed, a little bit guilty, a little bit judged when we talk about like what I'm spending money on. Can we like take a pause and just consider that? Or, can you just validate me? I'm a big proponent of validation. Sometimes we just need validation. We don't need fixes. And something like this could be helpful. So again, figure out what that looks like for you, but do not be afraid to just pause and take a breather first before you continue the conversation with anybody. Four, remember that if you are working with somebody, whether that's your partner or a professional or whoever, you are on the same team. Ideally, you are on the same team if you hired somebody for sure, because you're paying the money or you're spending an hour of your time with them or more, right? But just remember that they do want your best interest. Like I know that me and my husband, like we are on the same team and raising our daughter and building the life that we want. It doesn't always feel like it, especially when you're starting to build maybe frustration or anger towards somebody. It might feel like it's us against them, but that is a distraction that's going to keep you distracted from what you really want and deserve in your life. So that's why, again, this can be pause of the part of the pause, breathe, take a step back, be like, all right, we're on the same team. We're on the same team. So we don't shame, we try to stay calm, we don't blame, and remember that it's not the other person really that's usually making us like triggered. It's our stress because money carries with it a lot of weight and it is a tool. But when it's not a tool and you don't know how to use it or you haven't been taught how to use it, it could just look scary. Like, ooh, what is that sword over there, right? But once you learn how to work with it, then you start to feel empowered, which leads to the last step, tip number five, which is focus on your baby steps. So one step at a time, like they will add up. They will set you up for wins. So even if that's like your baby step is instead of buying coffee at Starbucks 5 times a week, I'm gonna just go 2 times a week, or I'm gonna buy a home like little pint, right, of iced coffee, and that's $5 instead of $5 a week instead of let's say $30 a week, which it does add up because even if you're saving, let's say $25 a week, that's $100 a month and 1,200 a year, right? So that money can go towards whatever your financial goals you said you wanted. Let's say you wanted to retire and you're like, I don't even know where to start, but I know that I can start putting some money aside. Or I really want to go on a cruise with my family. Start putting that money aside, right? So building awareness. And this is the part where connecting back to how I started is meeting with a financial professional, somebody who's really invested in helping you understand your money. And I think that's why like I'm partnering with my husband with the money and mental health and I on the financial literacy and adding my two centavitos around mental health because I know that the connection is real and it's necessary. And I know that his heart is in it, and I know that there's other people whose heart is in it, like the people I'm doing the class with. So I really want to encourage you to remember that anxiety and avoidance and all these feelings that might make us not want to talk about money are the same things that could be distracting us from the future that we deserve. Like, we deserve abundance, we deserve financial freedom. Like, we deserve to not feel so, like, what is it, discouraged maybe by the current financial landscape. So, if anything, I just hope that these tips encourage you to talk about money, whoever it is that you're meeting with, maybe it's with your partner, like I said, or with yourself, and be like, all right, girl, we're gonna put a Money Monday on the schedule to start looking at my money stuff. I'm just gonna look at what's coming in this week, and maybe in a few weeks, I'll look at what's coming out, and I'll just pay attention to subscriptions, right? Like, break it down. Like, if there's a task that's overwhelming, like money or budgeting, then break it into little chunks. Whatever the smallest chunk is that you need, you got this. And make sure to follow and subscribe to Millennial Thermom for topics, tips, and tools for new parent mental health EMAS. Some of these EMAS categories include money, like we just talked about, but also like food, because food is mental health. Also, habits and systems and schedules and all that stuff that I really like. So make sure to follow and y'all take care. Bye.